All right, looks like we do have everybody back in the main room. Derek, we're gonna start with you, and you can give us the feedback from breakout room number 1, and before we go to Jeff in breakout room number 2.
Okay.
You know, being cognizant of time, obviously, because we're gonna wrap in about 50.
Yes. I'll just touch on some high points. And as you all know, these meetings are also going to be formally written up and summarized. So if we've mischaracterized something that we've heard, then there's a chance to correct the record, so to speak. We had a lot of good conversations about the cross sections, and a lot of it was about the bike ped component, and some of it was the additional setback and what is used in that additional setback that was behind the sidewalk. We had a great deal of conversation about the A versus the B on the bike lane, and requests for doing a protected bike lane on the boulevard, potentially on the other one, but a protected bike lane with vertical declination, which can be done with channel and post or curb or something very physical. Heard some other ideas about potentially bringing the bike facilities up on to the sidewalk, moving behind a curb. That configuration, most of the sentiments geared toward pedestrian and bicycle safety and separating them from the movement of cars to the extent possible. Some similar conversation about street trees and potentially small bioinfiltration facilities that would also be used to increase that distance between the travel lane and the pedestrians. We had gone to talk from there about some of those bike connections with the rest of the network. We did focus on Taft for a good bit because it's been a bit of a mystery as to what really ought to be there, how to make use of that little path that's there, how to connect to the lane that's further down, or maybe just go with the Sharrow. It's a tough roadway situation. So we'll be taking another look there and taking another look again with our local partners who can help us on such things. There was talk about the bike movements in the roundabouts and some desire to see a specific bike facility and not just a take the lane attitude where we would provide something akin to a multi-use path that would build upon what we've already proposed for sidewalks for pedestrians, but widen it a bit. And so the bikes would essentially at a lower speed use that facility and then the pedestrian crossings and the gores to get around it, or would have the option of taking the lane. That was a pretty robust conversation. And then we also started talking about the furnishings and heard some really good input. Again, a reminder about the light pollution and uplighting the sky, which is not welcome. There was some talk about making sure the consistency is there, or at least knowing what's going to happen further up University with a suite of design choices being made for that corridor. And then for the downtown, which Neil suggested might just be same fixtures, but going LED. But we'll be following up on both of those things to know what palettes those folks are using for light fixtures. We'll talk a lot about that when we get back together. And then we talked stylistically about some things. Some folks said the warm kind of looks good, but multiple individuals hazarded us against putting anything out there that could be easily harmed. The woods just don't last as long. The simulated woods suffer differently from heat and sun exposure, and that anything soft enough to be harmed by the ne'er-do-wells out in the world, it wouldn't be any good because it's just too easily nicked, carved, and otherwise damaged 10 years into it. So lots of encouragement to go back to the metal. Talk about the benches and making sure that they were sort of discouraging to vagrants who would sleep on them using the center bars or center ridge, and then some support for the benches that came with that supple design suite that were actually open on both sides and had two of those ridges that prevented lying down. I guess we closed out with the point on the furniture being that it's imperative that the project be depicted accurately in the EIS and not to show a bunch of things that aren't really going to happen or be paid for. And so the the note was specific to furnishings, but also applies to understructure uses that don't lead people to believe that they're getting a lot of things that haven't yet been committed to by any of the possible sources that might fund them. Jeff, I tried to leave you about half the time there.
Yeah, Jeff, if you're with us, you can go ahead and give us a breakdown of what you guys talked about. You might have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
There we go.
I didn't take a lick of notes, but I'll see what I can remember with the old brain.
I got you,
I
babe.
think,
I got you too.
I think that it was, we did talk in the first part about the section option A versus B, and there's a clear preference for a protected bike lane. I think that everybody agrees that that's probably something that would be quite beneficial on a facility like this, and that got a lot of support. We talked a whole lot about the pros and cons of roundabouts, how they function versus signalized boulevards. And that really came into crossing distance and speed and comfort with how does it function. And we talked how, how the roundabouts really work and are they going to be safe for pedestrians and stuff. And I think that we came to a conclusion that they're new, they're not too common yet, but I think that they will work here because of the progression of them down the boulevard alignment and corridor area, where you're never going to get up ahead of steam because you got another circle coming up in 4 blocks or something. So that was a big deal. We talked a lot about the connectivity and what this project can do about putting the two parts of the bike system, pedestrian system together, filling in those gaps, making sure that it's whole and complete and it makes sense, and recognizing that bikes and peds are people too, and also have alternative means of transportation that are as equally viable and important as cars and trucks. So how that melds in to the system that's planned or would be planned, and how much we put in with this project was an important point of conversation. We talked about the size of development size parcels west of the southbound on this alignment. And is this really going to be attractive to developers? And is it going to be able to assemble parcels that make sense? And we mentioned that we wanted to stay away from the Macomb-Vise side, so that all the new stuff happens between the boulevard and the elevated. We talked about last thing we talked about was green infrastructure, and there's huge potential for doing that and doing some bioswales and taking care of our own water and our own footprint, which is a big deal, and we'll want to do that. But everyone agreed that, as we all know, it's all about the water in Lafayette and southern Louisiana. So we talked about that there is a really good opportunity here to take care of the water concerns without adding even more impact to an already overburdened drainage system. And finally, we had, again, like the other group, had a preference for wood, but with major caveats. Don't give me splinters, don't let it rot, don't burn it. And it's probably more preferable because it's warmer, it's less pretentious, it feels better on your butt, but there's some stuff that you got to reconcile with that over the long term, particularly in terms of costs versus how long it lasts.
I'm sorry, Jeff, to interrupt, but I may have misspoke. I don't think my side of the crew preferred the wood. I think that all the O&M costs or concerns added up to saying don't do that one. So I might have misspoke.
Ah, well, I think we can still say that this one's up in the air. We still got some figuring to do, but it was preferred to until you get up to splinters and money. So I guess I don't know what the answer is. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's all really great feedback. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Derek. Before I turn it over to Tim, I just want to remind you that We did record the main session and the breakout sessions, and we will be sending you the link to those tomorrow. And we encourage you to check that out at your leisure. We'd also like to encourage you to reach out to anybody you know who is a member of the LCAG who has not been able to participate for one reason or the other, and just encourage those people to join us when possible for the next workshop, because the more input, the better the entire outcome. So with that, I will turn it over to Tim. We might end up leaving you with a little bit of time to go and catch the UL football game. Tim?
Thanks, Jennifer. Looks like we had a lot of feedback in today's meeting. What's coming up next is we have Workshop 5 that'll be coming up next month. So we'll have to be getting that all together and organized. We have to document the comments, input we have, the chat questions from last week's meeting. We should be getting that out by tomorrow. Those are set up, and then following Workshop 5, we'll have the neighborhood meetings and public meeting. So that's some of the things we have moving forward. Steve, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you pretty well covered it, Tim. Thanks for all the input today. And again, we look forward to one last workshop. And like Tim said, it'll be about a month from now. So be looking for that invitation, and also be looking for the follow-up to this one as well. So thanks for everybody's input, and wish UL the best today. So hope it works out well.
Go Cajuns.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great night.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.